I hear you. I hear that when it comes to policy, you agree with former President Trump over current President Joe Biden. I do not want to talk about, though, former President Trump's language. Over the weekend, he made some remarks. I'll read them to you and I want to get your reaction. He said this during a rally, quote, "If this election isn't won, I'm not sure that you'll ever have another election in this country." He also added, quote, "I don't think you're going to have another election in this country if we don't win this election. I don't think you're going to have another election, or certainly not an election that's meaningful." He also called January 6 prisoners hostages. When it comes to this type of language, do you think this is helpful? The nature of it is inflammatory. And how much do you think that this matters from a former president who could be the next leader of the free world?
I think this is just politics as usual in our country. I think both teams are trying to rally their bases and saying this is the most important election. We hear that every 4 years, the most important election we've ever had. So I don't think there's anything out of the norm relative to that. And I think that this is a very important election. It is about going in one direction or another, and the two directions are very starkly different. But all the talk about they say that somehow having a Republican in office is going to be a threat to democracy. I mean, I completely disagree with that. The party that I'm part of believes in freedom and liberty. And right now, we talked about the regulation under Joe Biden. We're fighting at the state of North Dakota 21 different rulemaking efforts, none of which those came through Congress. A rule like the SEC rule that on climate that came out last week, 886 pages, the methane rule over 1,000 pages long. Each one of these are just killing our ability to generate clean, sustainable energy in America. And when we're attacking our own industries, when Joe Biden, by executive order, is saying we can't build LNG facilities to ship clean natural gas to our allies, when he's doing that by executive order, that's what feels like a dictatorship. So this is a stark contrast. And I think if anybody believes in free markets, they believe in innovation, they believe in America being operating at strength in the world versus operating out of weakness, those folks are going to show up and they're going to be voting for President Trump.
But when Trump specifically says, "I don't think you're going to have another election, or certainly not an election that's meaningful if he doesn't win," does that sound like someone who's upholding democracy?
I think he's drawing a contrast about the importance of the election, because when you say not one like this, because again, we're in a position right now where we've got to make sure that we are electing people that follow the Constitution, people that make sure that they understand how this country was set up. And it was not set up to have federal government being in charge of everything. This goes back to the very founding of our country. Was the 10th Amendment of the Constitution says there's very specific and enumerated responsibilities the federal government has. One of those responsibilities is national security, which includes border security. And Joe Biden is not doing his job. If we have an open border, 10 million people have come into this country that are here illegally, and who knows how many that beyond that passed through that didn't have any contact, because we've got gaps in our gaps thing. We've had North Dakota National Guard down at the border during my time as office. I've been down to the border more times than Joe Biden. I know that there are millions of people that aren't even in that number of 10 million that the official number that have come across from. And Ronald Reagan said, if a nation isn't a nation unless it can control its borders. And when I think about the people that we've met on the campaign trail around the country, when you've lost 330,000 Americans to overdose deaths just during the time that Joe Biden has been in office, I mean, we actually are in a state right now where we've got a mass invasion with mass casualties of Americans, many of them, 18 to 45-year-olds. Largest cause of death now among that age group in America is fentanyl poisonings. So, we're in a cyber war, we're in a cold war, and we're actively, in my mind, essentially under attack right now. And so I think we have to be focused on those real facts. It's way more important versus what one party or the other might be saying at a political rally. We've got to just focus on what's actually happening, and what's happening right now is made every state a border state. It's made every city more dangerous. And it's 2016, the border was about immigration. It's not about that. Now it's about national security and it's about public safety.